The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
All right, everybody, good evening and welcome to Season 13 of Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you this week. We're going to start things off as we always do on the Coach's Corner panel. And I've got a couple of great guys here, John Hughes and Pete Buchanan. I'm going to introduce both of them and bring you up to speed a little bit in just a moment or two. And later, some golf drills by golf fitness expert Bob Forman is going to be joining me once again this week. And then later tonight, I've got actually two featured guests, Jason Moore, the co-founder and partner CEO, and Jeremy Santana, the senior product manager for True Linkswear, are going to be joining me on the second half of the show. So you want to make sure you stick around for that. But great show as always. If you want to catch the shows, if you go to our YouTube channel, it's youtube.com youtube.com/@iGolfSports, or you can pick it up on Spotify.com. It's also available in audio version at Spreaker.com, or basically wherever you listen to podcasts. So you want to check that out, and that'll be uploaded a little bit later on this evening. So, but glad you could join us on the broadcast, and glad that you're tuning in each and every week, getting more and more people following once again, especially with the new format. And we're going to have a lot of fun tonight on the Coach's Corner panel. So let me introduce the guys, and we'll get into tonight's discussion. First up, of course, is John Hughes, PGA Master Professional and the past president of the North Florida PGA section. And he was also the 2013 PGA of America Professional Development Award recipient. And he was in 2009 and 2023 the North Florida PGA Teacher and Coach of the Year, as well as Golf Digest Best in State Instructor in 2023 to present. He's also a senior contributing editor and a top 25 instructor with Golf Tips, plus a favorite here on the panel. Also, another favorite on the panel is my good friend Pete Buchanan. He's been teaching this great game now for over 30 years. He's the founder and director of instruction for Plain Simple Golf, and PSG houses the Plain Simple Golf Circuit and the Simple Swing Repeater Training Base. And Pete's been helping golfers around the globe focus on building a repeatable swing. And as I mentioned, he too is a favorite here on the panel. So guys, as always, welcome to the Coach's Corner panel.
Thank you, Ted.
Yeah, thanks, Ted.
All right. So our discussion tonight is cleaning up the clutter. And what I mean by that is there's obviously a lot of, I see the look. Yeah, I'm not talking about your room there, John. Well, that could probably use a shovel or two as well. But no, just kidding. What I mean by that, guys, is this. You know, there's obviously a lot of different opinions when it comes to instructors. Everybody teaches a little bit different in that. And these particular topics that I've picked tonight, I think are going to be interesting. So I'm going to actually start, believe it or not, out of order. I'm going to start with you, Pete. And this is really the first one is when addressing the golf ball. So where should our eyes be focused on the golf ball? An example, is it on the back of the ball, on the top, or the front of the ball, etc.? And does it change depending on which club we're using? So focusing on the golf ball, where should we be looking when we're addressing the golf ball?
Thanks, Ted. It's good to be here. Looking forward to it, John. What a great question. I suppose it would depend on, basically if you're looking at somebody's golf swing and what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, if somebody comes from the outside, they maybe want to look on the inside of the ball. If they come from the inside, they might want to look on the outside. I wouldn't look at the top because nobody wants to hit the top. But
Right.
I would say you could look at the back of it if you're trying to swing the club into the back. But I would try to make it consistent with whatever you're doing. To try to get the same situation of what you're doing over and over again. But to me, it's nothing I really teach. I really don't look at that very much. I've always said if you do all the big things right, those little things will take care of themselves. But I think it really would depend on what you're trying to do. And so again, if you want to hit a shot that maybe starts one direction or another, or you're trying to look at maybe a little bit of a curve or something, it may change where you look at the ball. But in my focus, I would say it's either on the inside, the outside, or the back of it. But that's probably the only three that I would actually look at if I was trying to give it to somebody.
Yeah, and the reason why, and again, it's not necessarily that there's any right or wrong answer here. The reason why I bring it up is because I've seen a lot of, and as I'm sure you guys have come across this periodically, a lot of instruction, and you'll see different approaches where someone maybe is struggling with a certain part of their swing. Maybe they're hitting shots, as you pointed out, a little bit ineffectively. And sometimes coaches may use something, okay, I want you to look an inch in front of the ball, or maybe I want you to look lower back right of the ball, behind the ball, or something along that lines, to get them to focus on something opposite to what the problem they're having. And so it's interesting because I've had people ask me this and say, well, I don't know, where do I look? I mean, I know I'm looking at the golf ball, but is there a specific spot I should be looking at on the golf ball when I'm setting? And does it change from club to club? Like for a driver, because I'm hitting it on sort of the upswing as opposed to hitting down and through the shot with an iron, do I need to be looking somewhere else at the golf ball? So you get that periodically, and I've seen a lot of different answers, not just online, but through various different golf instructors. So I thought that'd be interesting, and that's what I meant by cleaning up the clutter, because again, there's a lot of confusion out there. So I think obviously it depends on the individual instructor, and it depends on what you're specifically working on, that maybe that might be something they want to consider looking at, or seeing what the student is actually looking at, for lack of a better word. So but appreciate the answer, and again, no right or wrong answers necessarily in this. I was just trying to get your opinion on that particular topic. So this one here, we're moving on to John, and this one is wet, hard and packed, or fluffy. Now, I know before you think of going in the gutter with that one, I'm talking about sand. What changes, if anything, do we make in order to deal with these types of bunker sand? So obviously, I'm talking about obviously when the sand is wet, maybe it's just rained. Sometimes you get in some courses where the bunkers have gotten a little bit firmed and packed up. And then sometimes you get in some areas where the sand is extremely fluffy. So we might want to make some changes to our bunker shot. So just give us maybe an example of each, if you wouldn't mind, and if there are any changes that we might need to make given the circumstances.
Great question. First off, thanks again for the opportunity to share and be part of this conversation. I need a favor, Pete. Can you please referee this so we don't get in the gutter?
Yes, I will do that.
Things?
Yeah.
I saved it especially for you, John.
Well,
I was going to ask Pete that one. I thought, no, I'm throwing this one at John.
So let's talk about wet or dry. And
Sure.
in Florida, we're going to start turning the corner here where we're in the wet season. And when it's wet, it does get a little bit more compact. What I'm teaching people is not necessarily distance away from the golf ball where the club is going to enter. That's part of it. The other part is, what's your bounce angle? It's very traditional and very right to have someone open up the golf club. And when you open up the golf club, you're adding bounce. And that's what most amateurs are not paying attention to.
Right.
When you're in firmer, wetter, more condensed sand, you're going to get more bounce out of that.
Sure.
Particularly if it's dried out and hard. What you're trying to do is figure out not just how far behind the ball I'm going to enter the club into the sand with, but how firm is this? And without taking practice swings and hitting the sand, you're going to have to use your feet a little bit. You're really going to have to use your feet to figure out how firm, how fluffy, how dry, how granular, how whatever the condition is, to be able to determine not just how much to open the club up. It may be that you're taking a different club with a different bounce and being able to open it up to your satisfaction, to be able to look at it and get something that you're desiring out of it result-wise.
Right.
That's really the key here is, yeah, you're going to take a little less when it's compacted. Yes, you're going to take a little bit more when it's dry and fluffy and so forth. But what's that bounce angle? Because if that bounce angle's off when it's really compact, you're going to bounce a club into the ball. You're going to scull it, wonder why it's still in the bunker, or wonder why it's in the next fairway.
Yeah.
When it's dry and you don't have enough bounce, why am I digging? Why am I digging it deeper into where I am?
Mm-hmm.
These are all considerations as far as getting rid of the clutter. Keep it simple. Dry means closer. but it means less bounce. I'm sorry, more bounce. When it's compact, wet, it's a lot less bounce. It's a little bit closer, but the key is don't change your swing. Just
Right.
just change how you're setting up. There's no reason to change your swing. Most people are going to try to go a little bit more vertical, hard compact. You're bouncing again. There's no reason to do that. Figure out how hard and what that bounce is, and you can't go wrong.
Yeah, and again, the reason why I wanted to bring that up is again, this is something that people don't really factor in, and again, playing somewhere in Florida as opposed to maybe playing up in the Northeast, a lot of times you're dealing with different types of sand, different textures of sand, and it makes a difference. And I'm a firm believer, when you're going to do your warm up before the round, get a couple out of the bunker. In the practice area, get a feel for what the sand is like on that particular, especially if it's a course you've never played before. If it's rained or something, get a kind of feel for what you don't have to hit a lot of shots, but just hit a few shots out of that bunker in the practice area before you go out and play. So you have an idea of what kind of sand and what texture because again, as you mentioned, John, you can't lay the club down in a bunker shot. So you don't really know other than your feet. And that certainly does give you a lot of information, but maybe go and hit 2 or 3 shots out of a greenside bunker up in the practice area before you get out, and hit that first tee. So great answer. And I like that. I think sometimes it's important just to be consistent in what you do and understanding how the bounce actually works in a golf club, which a lot of players, as you've mentioned in the past as well, really don't understand. So, Pete, I'm coming back to you. And again, as I mentioned earlier, opinions differ when it comes to shaft lean. Here's another one here that we get. To lean or not to lean? That is the question, as it were. And obviously throwing a little Shakespeare in there, but I just wanted to get you to talk about, because we hear this a lot of times when you're setting up. You always hear about, well, you need a little bit of shaft lean, and then you see a lot of pros on TV that the club is straight up and down. There's no lean at all. So what typically is the rule of thought in a full shot? And are there situations where it maybe leans a little bit more? And we'll talk about right-handed golfers. So we'll keep it simple. And of course, for the left-handed, just opposite of what you're about to say, but to lean or not to lean?
Well, I guess, again, it depends on what you're trying to do. I would always try to go with a little bit of lean because I think more of the amateurs would benefit from it because I think they'll get a little bit better compression and they'll get a little bit more distance out of it. So I'd always like to see a little bit, if it was, even back to where they started, that's fine. But most of the time, and John, I know you've seen this, Ted, you've seen it, is they go the other direction more than they go lean. And so they're always trying to scoop at it and add loft. And I've always said an amateur takes a 7 and turns it into a 9, and a tour player takes a 7 and turns it into a 5. And so there's 4 clubs difference there when you're looking at distance. And so I'd always like to have a little bit of lean, especially with an iron, especially with some short game shots, just to make sure you're getting a better contact with that. But then again, if you're trying to hit something really high, if you're trying to loft something up in the air, then you're not going to want to have that lean in there because you want to go the other direction. So it really depends on what you're trying to do with a shot, whether you want it low, whether you want some more compression, whether you want to get a little bit more ball speed off it, or you want to toss it up in the air, maybe a little bit higher. You could use that somewhere around the greens. I would, for my players, I would still like them around the greens to have a little bit of lean, but just open the face if they need more loft, only so they can get the right contact. So that's the only thing that I would change there. But, I think really depending on the shot you're trying to play, I would always lean toward a little bit more lean than not having any at all.
Yeah, and again, you see so many differences, and it's not just on the teaching side, but from players. And obviously, every player is different. And we're going to talk about that with you, John, here in just a minute. We're actually, the next few questions are going to get into a little bit more of that. But again, you look at, there's so many variations now of what we see out there in the golf swing. Certain things are obviously the same, but you see a lot of things where, see some players are leaning the shaft a little bit more. Some are emphasizing more weight on the lead foot, especially for the iron shots, particularly for the iron shots. And then you see some that have a lot more lean and some don't have or very little lean at all. But yet they seem to be effective. So I think it really comes down to the individual. And this really talks to what we're going to talk about, or have you talk about, John, and that is the subjectivity of the game. And that is swing variability, different swings, player specific needs, skill levels. obviously different learning styles. No, it's a lot in there, and body types. There's a lot of differences in players. So again, the old school of thought was, let's teach everybody kind of in the same box. But as we've started to discover, as more information is becoming available to us as instructors, we're seeing that there are opportunities where we can vary some of the teaching methods to cater more to the student based on, again, body type, body style, swing, skill levels, that sort of thing. So maybe just unpack that a little bit. I know it's a lot to get in there, but maybe you could just touch on a few things there.
So trying to stick with the theme of let's get rid of the clutter to that, you mentioned a lot of different things. And what I find with my clientele is they'll come with so much stuff and there's no priority to it. And really what you're talking about, and I'll say it a little bit differently than you, everybody's going to set up different, everybody's going to swing different. But what is the priority to you and your makeup as a golfer? And it's always going to start with how you set up. And I'm sure Pete has his own way of getting everybody set up using almost the same words. But because he's got somebody different there, it's going to be different each and every time he gets somebody set up. There's some absolutes such as aiming and understanding aiming and what that does to affect other things. But as far as the paradigm of gas, grip alignment, stance, posture, there's so much science out there now. It doesn't rip it apart so much as it has confirmed the importance of each segment, but not necessarily in that order for certain people. Once you get the priority of aim out of the way, it could be a hodgepodge of different things. So I'll give you an example. I had 3 clients today. All 3, I tell them, hey, use your area code to remember these priorities. And the first number, whether it was 5, 4, 7, whatever it was, let's get the club aim correctly. But literally the second person we had to work on ball position. The first person we had to work on his grip. The third person, it was all about balance. So literally using just some simple words, but a priority list for that person,
Right.
you can get them set up and reduce the clutter because you're in my case, I'm trying to get them to remember 3 things, not 100 things in various orders. I call that standardization. Can you standardize what you do and can you put it in the same order each time? Our human brains want that and thirst for that. We love routine. So what if you've got this routine and all of a sudden you're faced with something unusual? With that unusual situation, you can go through the routine, check the boxes and realize, hey, I've got to deviate my standard a little bit here because of this. Or I've got to deviate and vary how I hold the club or where I'm going to put the ball in ball position wise based on the situation I'm in. Because it all boils down to, if I don't understand my standards, how can I vary? How can I make those adjustments to those special situations, which in turn creates a circumstance that you may or may not want? And that's really, to me, how I'm trying to prioritize for people. And most of the time they're coming with 0 priority. Once
Right.
they can do that and create some standards, that is cleaning up all the clutter. That is literally just putting it in a funnel, letting it come out the way it needs to for you. And it might be the same for you as for other people, and it may be totally different, but it is for you based on what your priorities are.
Yeah, and those are again some great points. You know, the real reason I spoke about this topic tonight, cleaning up the clutter, as sort of a general theme, is because there is a lot of information that people, especially in today's game and technology out there, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But there's so much information coming out to the player that a lot of people are confused. They're cluttering their minds. They're thinking about too many things out there in the golf course. Even in a practice session when they're working with you on the lesson tee, you know, you're trying to talk to them about one specific thing, but they got 4 things going on here on top of what they may be going on in their business life or in their personal life. They're bringing all of the baggage, as we often refer to, here to the golf course with them. So it's very difficult to focus and to be able to identify key areas that might need work on that could very simply improve your game dramatically, but because you've got so much clutter going on in your head, it's very difficult to filter that through. So yeah, you have to sort of declutter yourself, and that's something. I mean, you could do a whole show on that with so many
Oh yeah.
opportunities. But great answers, John. I appreciate that. Pete, here's something too that we see variation in teaching approaches, and there's nothing wrong with approaches, but some like to focus more on the fundamentals, and that's fine. I think everybody covers a lot of this stuff, but there's some that like to just focus on that. Others maybe emphasize more with the technology. They like to use some of the technology and like to really focus on the numbers, and that's, and we've talked about that. And well, maybe others offer a more personalized as opposed to versus to generic. So they might, as John was pointing out, everybody's different. We're going to get more personalized instead of doing everybody fits in this box. So when you're talking about variation of teaching approaches, let's unclutter that a little bit. Do you think that instructors in today's market need to have a little bit of everything, or is it okay for them to focus more in a general area, focus whether it be the fundamentals or focus on a more personalized experience and or bring in technology? So I know it's a lot of, again, to unpack, but if you want to just pull a few things out of there and just give me sort of a general overview, is how do you think instructors need to focus today? Is it more centralized? Is it more a little bit of everything, a little bit of extra spice in the sauce, so to speak? What do you think on that?
Well, a super cool question, but I think it really depends on the student. I mean, some of them, the younger ones, love the tech. They're all into it. So, having the numbers, being able to see what's going on, using training aids. I mean, they really like all that stuff. But I think in the end, if you can utilize all of those in a very simple way into the instruction, then you can pretty much use it all if you want to. I mean, I have the launch monitor on every lesson. I just leave it on. Whether they use the data or not, and I use it to pinpoint a couple of things as we're moving along. But I think really depending on the person, depending on the ability level, depending on what they actually want out of the lesson, you can use all of it, you can use some of it, you can use none of it. It really depends on what you're trying to accomplish with each player that's in front of you. So I think really depending on that person, and then also I think too, I mean, there is a lot of information. It's just, it can be a ton, but I think we as instructors need to understand how to simplify all of the information down into a pretty much compact area, so that when we present it to them, we're not giving them a bunch of clutter, as you said. We're giving them a very simple idea of what they're trying to do based on any of the technology or any of the training aids or anything you're trying to use. But using that knowledge relative to the student and keep it as simple overall as possible with everything that you're trying to use.
Yeah, great. Again, great points. We see again. I don't think there's anything wrong with focusing on or adapting a specific approach to your teaching style. I think that's good. I mean, that makes us all unique and makes you different from John and John different from me, and vice versa. But I think at the same time, there's certain core things that have to be taught. And I think there's a way of approaching this. Again, as you said, with younger students, maybe we're going to throw a little bit more technology in there. Maybe for some of our older golfers, it's going to be a reevaluation of the fundamentals, make sure they're still doing the things and working on ways of helping them to either not necessarily get more distance, but maintain the distance that they've had for maybe the last couple of years and not lose that. So how can we find ways, or to score better in a case where they have lost distance? So there's a lot of different variables that can be put in there. And I think it's okay to have different teaching styles, but I think we have to be careful that we don't get too hyper-focused in one way or the other and then put everybody in that same box. So great answers again. John, there's a lot of complexity to the golf swing in many ways. We talk about things like coordination and timing. People have referred to muscle memory as well, and obviously the mental game. So there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of factors to be considered, to focus on. So what are your thoughts here as far as do we address, there may be others that you may want to consider as well, but do we focus on sort of one at a time? Do we try to mold them all together and do it that way? Or what's the best approach when it comes to dealing with some of the complexities of the swing?
Well, to go back to the priority answer, as well as what Pete said, that everybody's going to be a little bit different, and everybody's going to have a specific need at a specific moment. I think some of the best coaches in the world are able to jump in and jump out of those categories, but yet meld it together for that person at that time based on what their questions are, based on what their disbeliefs might be, based on what their trends and tendencies are happening at that particular moment. And that's something I'm always trying to be on top of. Watching nonverbal communication, really listening to a question, not just for the surface area of the question, what are they really asking, and being able to take them on a small journey per se and either stick with the nuts and bolts, hey, it's a technical thing and here's the science behind it, or here's the technique behind it. But then also from a cause and effect, if this happens, then you're going to have a chain effect for some other things. Uh, it's going to be based on the individual and the situation. I hate to be generic in that answer, but it's very true. Again, the three different people I dealt with today, one of them has some serious health issues. So keeping things more simple and relative to what that person's journey is to be fighting his health issues was more paramount than the second person who couldn't break 100 last year and now is flirting with breaking 80. It was more of a, hey, here are the goals and here's this and here's the little details. And the third person is a former single digit who's now seeing the scores climb, and they lost touch with not reality so much as their actuality
Right.
and how things are going. So it was literally three different people, three different directions, but yet three different messages to be able to provide them where they wanted to go, what are their goals, and how they're going to get there. So I think the listener, the average amateur who's listening or watching this podcast, has got to really sit down and figure out what is it that they want to do and where do they want to go, and clearly communicate to us these things. And when things are not going well in their brain, it's too clouded, or in their heart, they're just being torn apart. Should I go this way or go that way? You've got to be able to communicate to your coach. And all the great coaches I've ever been around all my life are either going to give you that answer and provide you the education, or they're going to go, you know what? I don't know this. It's
Right.
time to bring in somebody else. It's time to bring in somebody to satisfy that need of yours. And that's really what you're after.
Sure. And again, great answer. In the question I asked you, there's a couple things that, that I was thinking about when I was putting this together. And, really one of the goals that we have as a coach when dealing with the swing is we're trying to create obviously something that's going to be repeatable for the students so that they're able to go out there and execute that particular shot on a repetitive basis so that they know that if they need to recall that, they know, okay, I remember how that feels. So they're, we always hear some people like to throw in the term and some like to throw it out, muscle memory. And I look at it this way is, whether you use that or use some other terminology, that's fine. But really what you're trying to do is you're trying to get their coordination and their timing as such so that they repeat that and they can sense or feel what that good shot feels like and what that smooth takeaway and what that smooth overall flow or rhythm of their swing feels like. And that's what I equate muscle memory with and I know some people look at it differently, but it's really about getting that timing down. And then how does it feel to me? How does it feel when I execute that shot under good circumstances? And then also, how does it feel when it's not working? Things are not firing in all cylinders. So I want to have that so that I can compare it to. And I think it's important when you're delving into different parts of the golf swing, sometimes we can get too mechanical and the students gets lost or bogged down. So sometimes it's just simple as getting them to understand how something feels, how something is, can make it repeatable for them so that they can continue to move forward and hopefully improve. And I think if they do that, that's going to happen. So as we get ready to close out, the final questions for both of you. And what I want to get is, Pete, I'm going to come back with you, is sort of summarize, in your opinion, how do coaches and players come together and help sort of filter out this clutter? Because as we talked about, and there's many others, I mean, there's a ton of other things that we could talk about, but there is a lot of clutter out there. So how can the coach and the player work together to sort of filter out some of that clutter and be able to move forward in a positive way when you're working with those students? Your thoughts here?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to get them to understand, what they're trying to do. And, because a lot of people come to us and as John mentioned before, their idea of what should happen is so far away from what really happens. And so we have to get them an understanding of what are we trying to do first. And then once we understand what we're trying to do, now we can put a process together to go achieve it. And so that in itself will sort of, guide you around the clutter a little bit. But focusing in on this is what I'm trying to do. This is how I've got to set up. This is how I have to move the club in order to achieve that type of impact I'm looking for. So then we're a direct process all the time. And so I think if we can move along those lines of understanding first, and then, truthfully too, I mean, I get this all the time, and I'm sure you guys get it. I'll go through a lesson, and at the end of the lesson, they'll say, yeah, but what about A, B, C, D, E, F, G? And I said, well, if they weren't necessary, otherwise I would have talked about it. And so a certain amount of times you can declutter a lot of that because you don't mention it. And we all know that we can make one change that makes 4 or 5 other things change, and so they don't have to worry about it. And so I think more importantly is, they need to be focused on what's necessary, because I think so many of them have no idea what they're trying to do. And, they watch 27 YouTube videos and now they've got 27 different opinions. And so they're really getting so far off from what they're trying to do. So I think an ultra focus on what are we trying to do? What are we trying to achieve? And how do we go about a process to achieve it? And I think that will get the clutter out and give them a direct line focus for what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and you raise a really interesting point too about that with students, because that is a common thing. Is in fact, what a lot of them will do is they will think about 2 or 3 things that are unrelated to what you're talking about on the range that they've seen in a video or they've heard somewhere else, one of their buddies, playing to foursome. And the whole time, instead of really listening and absorbing what it is that you're saying to them, they're thinking about that question. It's kind of like when you have a conversation, their eyes are glazing over. They're not really listening. They've already got a question in mind that they want to ask you, and they're just waiting for you to shut up. And that's really what it boils down to. And that happens on the practice tee. And the truth of the matter is, if you're not prepared to listen to what I'm going to tell you as an instructor, then why are you coming to see an instructor? If you've already got everything all figured out, then why are you coming to see an instructor? You're there because you're drawing on our knowledge and our expertise and our understanding of the game to be able to help you improve yours. And it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to refer to something you've seen. But if the whole time you're there, in the back of your mind, you've got a whole Rolodex of questions that you want to ask that are unrelated to the topic that you're discussing, then you're not really paying attention. And, and then that's why when it comes to the next lesson, they're falling behind because they didn't hear what you said this time. So they can't go and practice it in the meantime before the next lesson comes around. And you've got to end up repeating half of the stuff because, and they don't want to tell you that they weren't listening, but that's really the God's honest truth. So, just want to throw that 2 cents in there. John, what do you, if you summarize what we were talking about today as coaches and players, what are your thoughts here? How do we help them, in your opinion, to get rid of some of this clutter?
Well, Pete sort of hit on it. I say it, less is more. Sometimes just providing less is a lot more, particularly for the person who's trying to anticipate what we're saying to them, but yet they have this clutter in their brain. When you can sum things up in 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, that's very meaningful and very impactful, not only literally but figuratively. Sometimes that can really be the aha moment that we're searching for them. I don't mind the questions because the questions show that they care. It's a matter of steering the questions in the direction that they're trying to go in, to sort of repeat what Pete was saying. I'm just saying it differently. Can I take those questions, and if they want to go on a southerly track, let's go on the southerly track. But as we're on that southerly track, do these questions pertain to that? Yeah. Or are we going to make a west turn here? Do you really want to make the turn to the west, or do you want to continue to go south? Those are the things that can, you're literally allowing some of this inquisitiveness and you're directing it. It's sort of like having a harness on a horse. Let the horse run, but let's direct the horse in the direction that they want to run in. And that's sort of the styles and the strategies I use. But when these questions come from a very uneducated point of view, it's what they saw on YouTube, and they're confused. And I'm as guilty as the rest. I put that stuff on there, but it's not meant to confuse. It's literally meant to, hey, here are the important things, set up and get to impact and get through the ball. Those are the three things that are basically on my YouTube channel. But yet I had somebody today, one of the three, talked about a grip video I did, and all of a sudden he's off in 4 different places with this, where I had to say, well, time out. This is what was meant by this video. Why don't you try this the way I meant it? And got him to do it. He says, wow, this is different. Yes, it should be different. We are here to help you navigate that different. We're here to help you navigate the uncomfortability. But the more you're inquisitive, the less likely you're going to feel that uncomfortability. It's okay. Because a lot of times I see Pete shaking his head. A lot of times they don't want to deal with the uncomfortability. They're just going to keep asking to avoid it. And at some point, you're going to have to face the truth. You're going to have to hurdle that obstacle to get where you want to go. And that's what our jobs are, is to help you do that. We'll hold your hand for a little bit, but at some point, you've got to be able to take the risk or make the risk happen and jump over that hurdle and accept all these things. That's typically the aha moment that I see of the golfers I work with, because I'm always trying to get somebody to that next level. And they say they want it. Once they realize what it's going to take, that's something different.
Yeah, I mean, you guys both raised some great points. We've all been through that at some point in our careers, and it's just a matter of, I think, really getting the student, and there's nothing wrong with questions. I don't have a problem in people asking questions. I mean, if that's how they learn, I mean, it's good. I don't want somebody just standing there and the crickets chirping in the background, and I've put something out there and they're just agreeing with everything I say or not responding at all. I want them to ask. I don't even mind being challenged, certainly respectfully, but being challenged on something. But I don't want to have to filter out 1,000 different ideas every time you get together with somebody. Is you want them to come prepared to, let's talk about, let's focus on what the reason you're here for. And then at some point, if you want to sit down for a few minutes after, if you've got some questions, but let's focus on what we're here for today. And let's get a game plan that you can take away with you until the next time we meet. And then we can maybe have a conversation. And if there's certain things about what we're talking about right now that you have questions on, fine. But you don't want to get into, somebody, I don't know if it was, I think we've all probably said this, but I think Pete, you mentioned this some time ago back on the shows, and that was sort of paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
And that's what happens is people get so much information. And that's, again, why I talked about clutter, is that people get so much information going on in their head that they're not really listening to what information they're getting now, because they're thinking about some, 2 or 3 other things. And that was what I talked about at the beginning, at the top of the show, was, they're thinking about things going on at home. They're thinking about the office. They're thinking about whatever. You've got to clean this, start with a clean slate when you come to the lesson tee, and you got to be focused on what the task is at hand. Then when you're done, then you can decompress from that, and then you can focus on whatever you want. But great discussion, guys. Hopefully we helped a few people unclutter their minds, and certainly hope we didn't confuse anybody, but I think you guys covered everything pretty good. So Pete, I'm going to give you a chance to let the folks know the best way to reach that. And if there's anything specific that you want to plug, go ahead. And then John, I know you've got something here. So.
Well, again, thanks, Ted, for having me on. John, it's always a pleasure. I always enjoy being on with you. They can reach me at petebuchanangolf.com. One of the things to look out for is an app I'm involved with called IS Nation, which is gaining some traction. It's an all-sports app, so if you're interested in what that has to do, send me a note, and I'll let you know what that's all about.
Perfect. And John, let me just bring this up here. See if
you
we
can cover my face.
Yeah, I'm doing it. So let me just. No, it's not going to. So I'm putting this up on the screen because John's got something exciting coming up in a couple of weeks. So John, I'm going to turn it over to you and just let the folks know what it is that you got cooking.
Well, sure. One of my partners is Golf Live app, and Golf Live app is basically a really cool platform to do virtual lessons off of. I've been doing virtual lessons for quite a while, and this is I call it Zoom on steroids. It's everything that a video analysis program can do, plus being able to live stream like Zoom. Well, I've been very fortunate this year to be named to their coaches advisory board. And one of the things they're asking us to do is, can you engage the audience of Golf Live app through the app? And beginning May 20th is my inaugural episode of On Par with me, John Hughes. And it's a half-hour program that you have to see on Golf Live app. You have to have that downloaded to your mobile device. And it's a real simple thing. Can you feed me questions? Can you send me video? I'm gonna put that up in the app. I'm gonna analyze some videos. I'm gonna answer some questions. We're gonna be at the Omni Champions Gate Resort May 20th. I'm gonna demonstrate some things. Occasionally, we're gonna have a special guest, but it's all about you. It's all about somebody literally being able to see this live and get your questions answered. And this is the first of many really exciting things I've been working on now for quite a long time. And this is just the tip of the iceberg that I'm looking forward to. I'm going to have some help along the way and be at some really cool places along the way with this. So I do hope you download the Golf Live app, find me as your coach, but be on the lookout for once a month On Par with John Hughes and be able to join us for those streaming opportunities.
Sounds good. All right. So let me just say this as we get ready to wrap up. Don't forget to as John mentioned, go download the Golf Live app. I believe it's available in both Android, and iPhone.
It is.
So it's available in both. And join him live May 20th at 5 p.m. So for the inaugural episode. So John, thank you very much. Pete.
Improve your putting with the Alignment Ball Marker, a revolutionary new in-game putting alignment tool and ball marker. Its patented design allows you to reach your putt and adjust your alignment at the same time by using your putter, which improves your accuracy and makes the process of putting faster. 100% legal according to the USGA, by their definition, permitted under the rules of golf. Winner of Best New Product at the PGA Show and only $9.99 on Amazon. And it's also completely customizable for any golf event or as a promotional giveaway. Order at alignmentballmark.com.
Welcome back, everybody. We took just a short commercial break, and I'm excited to be joined by my very special guest tonight, Bob Forman. He's a golf fitness professional, and let me tell you a little bit about him. He's the former director of fitness and wellness for the Congressional Country Club in Bethesda, Maryland. He's also internationally known as a leader in the field of golf fitness, and his programs have been recognized multiple years in a row from 2021 to 2023 by the Golf Fitness Association of America. He holds a Master's of Science degree in exercise physiology and is a certified golf fitness instructor through TPI, or Titleist Performance Institute. And he's also a certified personal trainer through the American College of Sports Medicine. So Bob, welcome back to the show. I know it's been a couple of weeks, but we had a few glitches here and there. And last week we had some issues, and we've had actually a couple here tonight as well, but fingers crossed everything will go well. But so what I'm going to do first is we're going to talk about some things. Now, I've got a few steps here that you're going to, or a few drills, if you will, that I know you're going to talk about. I know you wanted to kind of queue up. There were a couple of videos that you wanted me to put through. I'll explain to you later, but I wasn't able to upload those, so we'll have to figure something out for that. But there are a few things here that we're going to talk about. And I know a couple we've touched on before. So I'm just going to get us into the mode, if you will. And then what we can do is get to our discussion. So here we are. And this is called, I believe, the Heisman. Is that correct?
This is
I'm sorry.
Sidesteps.
Sorry, I'm sidestep. Okay, so explain what you're doing here. You're getting into the position. And these are drills, and these are things, exercise drills, if you will, to get yourself golf ready for the season. So let's talk about that sidestep. What are you doing here? Explain what you've got and what you got on your legs there.
Yeah, this batch of exercises are a little bit more golf specific. We talked a couple weeks ago about hitting the basic muscles, but now we're going to get a little bit more specific and, get into a little more golf mimic type exercises. This one's called the sidestep. And the beauty about this one is that it's going to work you in an east to west pattern versus most of the stuff in gyms, fitness centers are going to work you north to south, front to back. Now, this will work what's called the gluteus medius, which is a hip stabilizer. So it's an important muscle group to keep nice and strong, but it also will help stabilize the lower body as you're swinging or as you're twisting and turning the upper body. So basically what I have here is I have an exercise band tied around my ankles, and you have different tensions in the bands. You can start with a medium tension, then work your way up. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take some side steps. I'm going to reach out, with my right leg as far as possible to the side, and then I'm going to bring the left leg back in, not all the way so that the feet are touching, but I'm going to bring it back in about 3/4 of the way so that I keep some tension on that band. And I'm going to do that 10 to 15 to 20 times in one direction, and then I'm going to reverse and head back 10 to 15 to 20 times in the other direction. And this is a great exercise. It also will help with knee stabilization, because if you have a weak gluteus medius, and a lot of us do, because we sit during the day, and when you sit, you elongate the glute muscles, and when you elongate muscles over time, you weaken them. So if the gluteus medius is weak, what can happen is the thigh bone, the femur, can actually rotate, which can cause knee issues to that side. So not only is it good for your golf swing, it's good for your health, it's good for your knee support. And like you say, it's one of the only exercises that kind of gets you going east and west.
Right. So let's move to the next one and get you to touch on that one. And I'll stop it as soon as the next clip comes through. So here's one, and I apologize, the technology sometimes isn't what it needs to be, and it's cut your head off, but we can see basically what you're doing here. So what are you getting up ready to do here? What's this exercise?
Go to the next one. Maybe the next one will be if you can.
Yep, I can do that. So we're going to do that, and I'll pause when it gets there. Okay, there we go.
Okay, yeah.
It'll cut your head off, but
this one's called the Heisman. And basically, in the golf swing, you're going to go through what's called the X factor. Jim McLean talked about that years ago. Yep. Basically, you want to separate. It's a disassociation between the upper body and the lower body, right? As you're swinging the club for a right-handed golfer, you got both the shoulders and both the hips rotating towards the right. And at some point, you want to start the lower body going in the opposite direction. So that's called the X factor. This drill here, what you can't see is I'm standing on a bench, and the height can change depending upon your conditioning level. You can start low and you can raise it up if you need to. I'm squatting back, and then I'm coming up with my left leg here, and I'm coming across my body while I have that medicine ball on my hip. So I'm basically trying to get my hips to go to the right while my upper body is stable. And then obviously you would want to do the other side so that your hips are going to the left while your upper body is stable. But again, it's a good exercise. It's kind of a progressive exercise to help golfers get that disassociation between the upper and lower. And as you're stepping up and down the bench, well, you're not really stepping on the bench. That in this particular picture here, my right foot is going to stay on the bench. My left foot will come down to the ground and then come back up again, go down and come up. So you're also getting kind of a good exercise to help strengthen the quad and the glutes to the leg side that's on the bench. So it provides multiple benefits, but the biggest thing is getting that separation between the upper and lower, again, which a lot of golfers have difficulty doing.
Yeah, well said. And, it's good too, because I think at some point you have to, and again, we've said this in the past, and I want to just repeat this real quick, is obviously you want to consult with not just somebody like Bob, that's a certified golf fitness instructor, but you also want to, especially for some of the older golfers, you want to make sure that you're consulting with your physician to make sure that you're able to do some of these things. I mean, they might not seem that difficult, but sometimes they could put pressure on areas if you've got a bad back, let's say, or you've got knee issues and things like that. You want to make sure that you get cleared to do these things, and your professional can help you. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this one here, I mean, it will get you winded because you are stepping up and down on a bench, so it will kind of challenge your cardio as well. So yeah, no, that's a good point about making sure that you get checked out with the physician before you start any type of exercise program.
Yeah. And it's always good, and I know that people like yourself, Bob, that are in the profession always begin with an assessment anyways to see where the golfer's at before you get into any sort of exercise. So let's move on to the next one. Let's see what we've got here. Let's see what I think we might have passed it. Hang on a second. No, here we go. So this one here, again, I apologize, his upper body is cut off.
No, that's good. That's all right. That's
focusing on what we want. So here you got a golf club in your left hand, and we're going to assume this is for right-handed golfers, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
And I'm going to show you the next one here so you can see what he's doing. So he's holding it in his left hand there, and I'm going to advance it to the next clip, and then you can explain what you're doing here, what the exercise is. So we'll get to the next one. There you go. So now he's raised it up, but you notice his arms in the same position. He's still standing erect. So walk us through this. What are you doing here, and why are you doing it?
Well, forearms are an important muscle group to keep nice and strong, so that you can handle the grip on the golf club. I mean, because when you swing the club, you're swinging the club in 70, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. You want to be able to hold on to that thing. So a lot of exercises can focus on the underside of the arm, the flexor side, and on the back side of the arm, the extensor side. There's not a whole lot that works the muscle groups on the inner side, which are called your adductors, ADD, to add to the midline of the body. So if I were to stand up and I were to do this, all right, I'm adding to the midline of the body. I'm using these muscles on the inside, and then the adductors are on the outside part of the forearm, and they take the hand and go away from the body. Now, when you're swinging a club, you're going to do a lot of adduction as you're bringing the club back, okay? So to isolate those muscle groups would be a good thing to do. So this exercise here will do that. So I have the club in my left hand, and I have it so that the most of the club is going to be extended to the front. I'm freezing my left arm against my body, and I don't want the arm to move. I just want the hand to move. I'm doing this from the wrist.
Right.
So again, as I bring it up and down, I want to kind of like tap the club to the front, bring it up, tap the club, bring it up, tap it. So that's, again, working what's called the outer part, the ABD, the abductors. So you can use a golf club. You can use a weighted pole, a 6-pound pole or 9-pound pole. And the further you go out onto the pole, the tougher it's going to be. This is a kind of a bicep bar, curl bar, and these things can be quite heavy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the opposite. All right, I'm going to have most of the bar, all right, extended to the back, and what I'm going to do is envision that I'm going to tap the back of that bar to the floor and bring it up and down, which is working the inner side of the forearm, the adductors, the ADD. So there are really good exercises to really kind of complete the entire muscle groups that are in the forearm. So you can work the flexors, you can work the extensors, but this is a good one to kind of get those side muscles that you're going to use predominantly when you're swinging a golf club.
And obviously it's important to do both versions of this exercise, the front and the back, because you want to keep it balanced. Because if you do too much of one and not enough the others, then you've got a weak area that now gets essentially exposed. You're developing too much muscle in the front. And this is not building muscle. I don't mean it that way, but you're engaging too much muscle one way. And obviously you want to keep things balanced out so you're able to execute things a little bit more. And again, these are the types of exercises that, again, you're not really engaging the whole body. You're actually just engaging isolating certain muscles. Right. And, maybe if this bar for some of our older golfers, if it's just a little bit too heavy and you're finding you're straining to do it, because you don't want to be, it's like with weights, you don't see them throwing the weight back or that sort of, so you find something else that will work just as well. You want maybe a little bit of resistance, a little bit of weight. So if you're finding this, maybe you could substitute something else. But no, I think this is a great exercise, and use the tools that are available in a gym like this. And every gym has these weighted bars. So again, if you've got this set up with a golf professional like yourself that can walk you through the process and make sure that you're doing the exercises properly, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, and it will be tougher when you tap to the front when you're working those ABD abductors, the first two pictures that you saw. So if you're using a weighted bar or something like this, you may not go to the end of the bar. You can go halfway, just grip right before the notch there, so that there's not as much resistance. And then as the strength gets better, you can go further out towards the end of the bar. Yeah.
All right, so let's advance to the next set of photos and see what we've got here. I'll stop on the first one when it comes through. Okay, so here you are. We got all of Bob in this one. So we got here you're on a platform. Obviously, I know these are, you can elevate them. You can see in the background, you can put different cones underneath and you can elevate to whatever. So what are you getting ready to do here? And I'll advance it when you're ready to go to the next clip. So what are you setting yourself up for?
So here we're working a little dynamic balance. It's called an angled knee dip. And so, I have a step. I have a riser underneath just one end of the step. And you can put one riser, you could put two risers. I probably wouldn't go any more than two risers to give you that angle. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to focus on one leg at a time. So I have my right foot on the bench, and I'm going to do 5 to 6 to 7 little tiny dips, squats, one-legged squats. Not going down that far. Just 6 inches, 12 inches, and then come back up. So it's isolating the inside muscle in the quads. You got the 4 muscles in the front part of your thigh, the quadriceps. This is isolating the inside muscle that is the main supportive structure of the knee. So it's a great exercise, again, to help stabilize the knee. But it also is going to work your dynamic balance, all right? So I'm going to do 6 to 7 dips or little tiny squats in this direction. Right. And then I'm going to rotate 90 degrees. So I would be facing away from the camera on the next set. I'm going to do 6 to 7 little tiny squats, dips. Then I'm going to rotate 90 degrees again. So I would be facing to the right, 6 to 7. And then finally rotating another 90 degrees. So I would be facing the camera. So every time you rotate, gravity is going to have a different effect on you. And this is going to simulate almost every golf shot you're going to have on the golf course. So in this picture here, the ball would be above my feet. When I rotate 90 degrees away from the camera, it would be an uphill lie. When I rotate towards the mirror to the right, it would be ball below my feet. And when I rotate facing the camera, it would be ball, a downhill lie. So it gets every single situation. It isolates that vastus medialis oblique, that knee support, and it works that dynamic balance, which is so important. And again, all the golfers I've tested over the years, dynamic balance is a challenge for a lot of golfers. And they need to get into exercises like this, not the static stuff where you're just standing on one foot for 30 seconds. You have to have movement involved, because when you're swinging a golf club, you're moving, you're not standing still.
Yeah, and a lot of people always focus on the big muscles all the time. That's why you see them at the gym. They're working the big muscles, but there's a lot of smaller muscles that are stabilizing muscles that play an important role as well in the spring. Let's go on to the next one here as we're getting close to our time here in a few minutes, and I want to see what we've got here. I think this might be just giving us an example of no, that was it. So that was the last one that we had in there. One of the ones I know you talked about, the Medicine ball. I didn't have that one. It didn't come in with the stuff. We'll have to get that the next time. But just sort of quickly summarize up. So really what we're trying to do here with these exercises, and again, to get us sort of golf ready as we're getting into the season a little bit more forcefully now, as the weather's starting to warm up all over the place. We're seeing lots of good golf. The Masters just a couple of weeks ago. We're getting ready for the PGA coming up and all these good things. So we really want to get into shape. But this is, again, as you pointed out earlier, these are golf-specific exercises. So just give us sort of a quick summary, what it is that we're trying to accomplish with these exercises. We're not trying to, bulk up or anything. What is it overall what we're trying to do here?
Well, again, it's good to start with isolating, build the base, work the basic muscle groups, the major muscle groups like we discussed a few weeks back, all right? Do that for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, get that base developed, get in the gym, 3 days a week if you can, do a total body workout. And again, we're talking about the majority of golfers out here, that just need to kind of get into something to help, better their body, to better their swing. And then once you get past the basic phase, you want to start getting into more golf specific exercises, that are going to work dynamic balance, that are going to kind of mimic the golf swing, that are going to help you confront all the different shots you're going to have out on the golf course. And that's what those particular 3 or 4 exercises that we went over today, and there's a bunch more, but I just wanted to kind of give your viewers some examples of some of those golf-specific exercises that they can get into that can really kind of take their program to the next level.
Yeah, well said. And I know that you've got a book that's available at thebookpatch.com. There's a link involved. Yeah, hold that up there. I need to get, I know you sent me a copy of the cover. I was going to put it up here, but it wasn't clear enough to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it on our website, golftipsmag.com. That's golftipsmag.com with that link so you can actually purchase a book. So I'll get the jacket cover, a different image of it so that we can get it up there, and I'll have that up in the next day. But yeah, great book, a lot of great information in there. And as I said, Bob is been doing this for a long, long time and hopes to keep doing it even longer. And I'm going to bring him on as many times as he wants. But I want to thank you, as always, Bob, for coming on and giving us some great information as we get ready for another golf season. So I'm going to take another quick commercial break. And when I return, I'm going to be joined by tonight's featured guest. I hope you stick around. All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm excited to introduce tonight's featured guest, Jason Moore. He's the co-founder, partner, and CEO of True Linkswear. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about him, and then he's actually on the show right now, as you can see, and then we'll get into tonight's discussion. Of course, True Linkswear is a golf footwear and apparel brand renowned for its minimalist design and focus on comfort and performance. And raised in a golf-centric family, Jason's early experiences included managing a golf ball resale business at age 6 and later caddying for his brother. We're going to talk to him about that for sure. PGA Tour professional Ryan Moore, and his formative years, of course, cultivated his deep understanding of the game and its demands. And here we are just a short little while later, and he's running True Linkswear. So, Jason, thank you. Glad you're feeling better. I know we were going to do this last week, and you were a little bit under the weather, and things didn't work out, but I'm glad you were able to make it tonight. So welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm glad to be introduced so graciously. You know my bio better than I do.
Well, there's a lot more there, but I have to edit it down because otherwise we wouldn't get a chance to talk. So, before we get into, I know you've got some exciting news this week. You guys just launched a new product, and I just got to say, you know, as somebody in the golf business, I'm a teaching professional, have been for 30 plus years, and also am the owner editor of Golf Tips magazine, and we've just done some new launches ourselves, and I won't bore everybody with that now, but because we're here to talk about you. But I'm really excited about your brand. I have a pair of your shoes. I love them to death. They're starting to wear a little bit thin though, so I might have to hit you up for some new products soon. But you guys just have some great, and I just love the whole thing. So just give us a little bit of an overview. How did this really come about for you? What was it that said to you, okay, and let me even go back further. Let's go back to when you were 6. What was the deal with the resale of the golf balls? What was this stealing them out of Dad's golf bag and reselling them, or were you?
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
Were you fishing them out of the ponds, or?
Did fish them out of the ponds, but my dad actually owned a small family business, humble little driving range here in Tacoma, Washington.
Right.
And my brothers and I kind of grew up working the weekends, picking balls off the range. And, you know, at a driving range, people are pulling their own golf balls out of their bag and hitting them from time to time. I would collect those, created quite an assortment. and I had a little stand out front of the driving range that my dad would charge me rent to operate, of course. So I was learning business, and I called it Jason's Pearls. And
Oh, wow.
I had a little pricing structure. It was 50 cents a golf ball, or $7 a dozen. Do the math; it doesn't quite pencil out. But I sold a lot of dozens at that $7.
I'm sure.
So it's good.
Did you also have to pay him like an affiliate fee as well for when you were selling them? Did he get into the program where you had to give him a little extra commission, or he just charged you the rent?
He was taking a little cut, that's for sure, but and rightfully so. And as you know, operating a business isn't as easy as you think. So understanding the math and understanding how rent works was probably a good life lesson. Now 6 years old is pretty young to learn that, but it stuck with me.
Well, it's good though, really, because my father, and I won't again bore everybody with the story, but my father started me out similar, very young, taught me certain things, and I think it's important as a youngster growing up, and especially if if dad can sort of bring you along, and sometimes you have to learn some lessons, like charging that rent, get you to say, okay, you know what, it's not going to be all about me. I've got to split some of this, and here's why, and sort of sets up the foundation. So, and here we are today. So fast forward a number of years, at some point, obviously, you mentioned Ryan in the bio, being obviously on the PGA Tour, and he's of course your brother. So you had obviously some great exposure, and you actually caddied for him a little bit later on. So was he partially the inspiration for developing True Linkswear? I mean, is he involved? I understand. Actually, let me rephrase that. Yeah. I understand there's a lot of you guys, relatives, friends, all this stuff. It's literally almost like a family at True. So tell us how that sort of came about. How did it come off the ground?
Yeah, well, first of all, while I was selling golf balls out front of my dad's driving range, Ryan was hitting golf balls, right. Which led to his career on tour. And so I should have picked the other path, apparently, but I actually love what I do. So, but yeah, I was out caddying on the PGA Tour with my brother, traveling the world, dream come true, having the time of our lives. I was in my early 20s. And my brother and I, got to this point in his season where he's testing new product and trying to decide, am I going to sign with XYZ brands for next year? And he just couldn't find any footwear solutions that he was happy with. And legitimately, my brother likes to believe in the products he endorses. There's a lot of guys that'll just take the biggest check. I get it.
Of course.
But Ryan's gut check just didn't feel right signing with a footwear brand at the time. And very fortuitously, somebody came to us with a pretty novel concept of launching our own golf footwear company, and showed us the initial drawings and designs, and we're like, no, but this is a good idea. Let's talk about this. And so, the initial concept, Ryan was heavily involved in. We were just roundtabling an idea, having no idea how to make shoes ourselves. But we had a whole lifetime of golf experience and had played at every different level and could literally live every, career that you could in golf at that point. And we just thought, you know what, let's give this a try.
So was he your guinea pig then a little bit in the beginning when you were coming up with the different designs, and obviously he would try them out and say, yeah, I like this. Now, did he actually, and I'm talking early stages before it really clicked, was he wearing some of them out on the events? Was he taking that? I mean, because that's a bit of a risk. I mean, if you're wearing something that's not really comfortable and you're out there and you're in the heat of, the battle out in the PGA Tour and your feet are sore because you're wearing a pair of shoes that aren't quite right, that's a little bit of a gamble. So was he doing some of that though early on, or was he just sort of practicing with them and maybe playing some practice rounds? What was his role?
Absolutely. He was prototypes would come straight to Ryan. He'd put them on, practice in them, and we got a call one day. He's like, prototype's good. I'm wearing them next week on tour. And we're like, well, we don't have a company name. We don't know what we're doing yet. Right. I guess we got to turn this into a real business. And so we got pretty fast-tracked to actually bring this to market because of Ryan's enthusiasm about wearing the product in competition.
Now, I know, and we'll get into that a little bit later, I know you've got some other stuff there, but what was it about the shoes though? I mean, that's kind of everybody gets into equipment and everybody gets into other apparel. And I know you've got some other things that you guys are doing now. You're not just strictly footwear, but But what was sort of the methodology? Was it mainly because he was finding a difficulty getting something, or was it just something, hey, I think that might be a market for us to get into? How did that sort of come about with that aspect? Is why the footwear? Why not some other aspect of golf equipment? Or
Well, it was based on this simple concept of building something more natural, built for movement, built for walking, built more ergonomically, so that it would cater to natural foot health. And to be honest, the first prototype that came in was pretty hard to look at. It wasn't something that my brother was proud to lace up from a style standpoint, but they felt so good. And he was still young in his career. He's only on his 5th or 6th year on tour. And he thought, I want to play for 20 plus years and I want to play injury free. And he had already struggled with feeling pain in his ankles and feet, which eventually leads to knee and hip and back problems. And so he thought, you know what, let's start fixing, my health from the ground up. And the footwear was the perfect place to start.
Without dating myself, because obviously I'm a lot older than you and Ryan, but I remember early golf shoes, and first off, they weren't the most stylish golf shoes, and they weren't really all that comfortable, but they obviously served a purpose. Really strikes me about, and I know this word is used a lot in today's analogy of different products, Nat, but it's not just a footwear, it's a lifestyle. And what's very unique about your shoes, because I have a pair of your black, I'm trying to remember which version. I mean, you've got so many stuff now on the market. I got one of the earlier ones, and it's very, very comfortable. And I don't even wear it on the golf course. I wear it more off the golf course because it just goes with so many different things. And black, of course, is a pretty neutral color there, but they're just so comfortable. I can walk around. I don't even know I have them on. And
that's what we want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So I should get an endorsement for something like that, but we'll talk about that later. But what's interesting is about it. So lifestyle was something that was really important for you guys as well. It wasn't just about creating a great product, but you wanted people to have something more. And we see that a lot with the golf clothing nowadays, where it's not just about, okay, it's golf. People want, especially women, want to wear some of that clothing, be able to wear it in other areas besides just the golf course. So when that was that in the methodology as well when you're first starting it out? It wasn't just about, okay, let's do another golf shoe. We wanted to make it a lifestyle brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had this philosophy, is pretty simple, is that you shouldn't have to put on a golf costume to go play golf. Especially when you live on tour. And a lot of what we do is based on selfish ideation. It's this idea of what do we always wished existed? And could you have that outfit or those, footwear pieces that could seamlessly transition from your morning workout to going to the office to going on a plane to go playing golf without skipping a beat? And I think that was really one of the first, breakthrough ideas, was not just comfort, but the versatility aspect. The golfer wishes they played golf all day, every day, but oftentimes you find yourselves doing an array of activities. And can you get footwear that's multi-purpose and functional and still performs at the highest level for PGA Tour players?
Now you have multiple, and we're going to talk about your new launch here in just a few moments, but I want to, you have some others. So what was the first one that came out officially on the market? Which shoe was that? And then how did you progress from there? Was it, again, more a lifestyle leaning in the initial shoe that came out? Obviously comfort and obviously performance and that. And then where are you sort of taking it now? And then we'll get into your new launch.
Yeah, the first shoe that came out is actually still our most popular style today. We call them our original family. It's a pretty novel concept, and no one makes golf shoes anything like it. They're zero drop platform. They're a little bit wider in the toe box, super comfortable, flexible, and they're going to move naturally with your body. And so for us, that original family was that differentiator and the reason that you had to have true. After that, we do serve and cater to a lot of PGA Tour players. In fact, today we have a dozen players that lace them up in competition at the highest level.
Right.
And so our Lux family of product was kind of the next evolution of what can we do to elevate the performance, the quality of the materials, the innovation that goes into each season, coming up with new ideas, testing new tread patterns, and even launching new spikes. And so that for us is another important category. But the third category, I think, is maybe our most popular over time, which is our all day category. It's like the shoe that you can lace up, like I said, in the morning and drop your kids off at school and go to work and maybe hit a bucket of balls at the range without skipping a beat. And I think that for us has been that shoe that, yeah, maybe you don't play golf in them every day, but you still wear them every day and you dream about golf sitting at your desk.
Well, and don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously I've played many rounds with them on and hit balls up in the range and so forth. But a lot of times just going out for a meal, I'll slip them on because they're comfortable and what I like about it is they're very breathable too, which is nice because I live in the South and I know you're up in the Northwest, so you got a little bit different climate than I do in Florida, so it gets pretty steamy down here. And so I like something that's comfortable, but I like something that's breathable too. That my feet aren't getting feel like they're in a sweat box. So I really like that, and I like the fact again that they're very versatile. That I'm able to wear them in a lot of different circumstances. So I mentioned you guys just launched on Tuesday. I think was the official launch of the Lux 2. So tell us about that. That's pretty exciting. Yeah. What's different from what you typically have gone, and what's new and exciting about this one?
Yeah, so Lux 2 is a huge step forward in innovation for our company. It could be more proud of the end result. The amount of blood, sweat, and tears that went into these things is pretty shocking. At some point when you're in product development, which is actually my passion and where I spend a lot of my time, you start feeling like a failure after 3 or 4 prototypes, and it's just not turning out right.
Right.
But we didn't give up on this product category. What we really wanted to do was bring that same true comfort and performance that people kind of come to our brand for, but elevate the experience with replaceable spikes. And so we iterated and iterated and iterated on this, and the amount of times that we internally thought, oh, we're getting close, and thought, we can do a little better. And we held it and held it and held it. And we're just now bringing it to market, and we're thrilled with the results. Not just internally in our wear testing with our tour players, but now that they're actually getting seeded out to the market, the response has been remarkable. We wanted to be able to offer, a replaceable spike platform, but we didn't want it to feel like all other spike shoes. So the amount of innovative components in this and the level of the quality of craft and material in it is really unprecedented.
And obviously they're changeable, so if spikes wear out, you're able to pop in a fresh one. If your one gets worn out or gets, for some reason, should get damaged, you're able to pop that out. And I'm assuming, obviously, there's a tool that you guys have as well for that. Now, is it interchangeable? Now, the spikes, is that something that you guys created, or are you partnering with somebody where you're using their spikes, or how does that work? Is that something you guys put together?
They're actually universal soft spikes. So if you have a favorite spike, you could throw it in there like a lot of tour guys do. But you're going to be able to replace them at any club or shop around the country, or a lot of people got that in their garage, ready to roll.
What's really interesting about what you guys have done is, and this, probably better than anybody because you've had to go up against that headwind. That when you're coming into a market like the golf market where there's so many big players out there, and you go back several years when you guys were first, sort of dipping your toes into the bunker, as it were. You had a lot of big monsters out there that you had to come up against, but you found really a very open niche in the market that was not being filled. Because I can tell you, I've been playing this game for over 30 something years. And as I said, I'm not going to date myself, but I'm getting up there. I'm long in the tooth, as it were. So, I know that there's a lot of guys out there, and you guys seem to have found a market that really was not being serviced. So when you're moving forward with new products like Lux 2 and you're addressing other needs, is there a point that you say to yourself, okay, we're going to stop at this and we're going to just continue to improve with what we got? Or are there other things, and you don't have to leak anything out if it's something that's not ready to come out, but how do you see yourself? Because one of the biggest problems in whether it's in your market or the apparel market is sometimes people go too far afield. They get so much out there, and then it gets to the point where they're doing something over here, they're doing something over there, and they sort of over expand themselves. Do you guys sort of keep yourself grounded to a point and say, we're gonna stay focused on this and we're gonna be the best that we can possibly be? Or what's your thought in that area?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, one of the ethos that's actually written over the front of my office right here is forever the underdog. We get it. We're up against a bunch of giants, and these mega brands are always going to have more designers, and they're always going to have a bigger marketing budget, and they're always going to be willing to pay athletes more than we are to wear their product. But it's not going to stop us from putting our best foot forward, grinding and showing grit and determination to come out with the best possible products. And so, when you ask yourself, is there a threshold to our innovation? I would like to think not.
Right.
As far as, our ability to keep innovating, ideating, and coming out with new things. That being said, something that we've held true to since the very beginning, and this is very much at my brother Ryan's directive, is if you wouldn't wear it, why are we trying to sell it? And I remember very early on, I debuted 3 brand new shoes to him, and I was like, hey, this is for this, this is for this, this is for this. And he was like, well, would you wear all 3? And I was like, well, no, I would only wear these 2, but there's somebody that would like that. He's like, well, let somebody else make that then.
Yeah.
And if it's not something that we feel inspired by, that we think that needs to exist, we don't bring it to market. So some years that might be dozen styles, some years it might be 3 or 4.
Yeah. And you have to, and what I mean by really what I'm trying to say is sort of staying in your lane. And that doesn't mean that you can't improve or you can't develop in other areas, but that's really the point I was making, is because you get a lot of people that do what you're doing, and I'm not talking about footwear, but I'm just talking about in their business, and they start trying to navigate into other areas, think, okay, I'm going to expand the business over here, and what they had right here was working great. They could expand it till to the moon and back, but they start trying to expand too much, and it gets to a point where eventually they're not really doing good on anything, because they've gotten so big and so out there on so many different lanes, I guess, or that they're not really able to handle that. And I think it's important, because I know I see that in the technology industry. I mean, there's some behemoths in the technology industry in golf, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a few contenders that are coming in that come in at a different price point and coming in now, and they're hitting number 1, number 2 in the golf market, going against the giants. And it's because they did much like you, is they came in with a philosophy: if I'm not going to wear it, why do I want to make it? And I want to make it for the markets that are really not being served. And I may not be brand A right now, but I'm happy with that, because I'm servicing a big market that's not being serviced. So it's very important to, as you said, be true to what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
What do you love most about your job?
Gosh.
And don't brag. Well, actually, you can go ahead. You brag all you want.
Well, I like to think I've never worked a day in my life, because I actually love what I get to do. And so, yes, do I work 60-hour work weeks? Absolutely.
Right.
And are there sleepless nights trying to figure out how to make a startup business work? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I think the thing I value most is the relationships I've built. Early on, it was a very much a core ethos of ours that we wouldn't build a company that we didn't want to go work at ourselves. And so if we built the right company environment and culture where people look forward to coming into the office, then you don't have to convince people that working from home is not advantageous. And so I think we built this amazing team and culture here at this office, and we have a lot of fun, and we do a lot of work. So it's a cool thing though, when everyone's kind of working on the same vision and mission. A lot of these people, even though they're coworkers and they're friends, and we look forward to today's company-wide meeting with all 50 of us gathered around and catching up and swapping stories and telling praise reports of different work that's been done in different departments, to doing company cookouts and playing skins games together every Thursday night.
It's not a job.
Yeah, it's not a bad gig. It's not a bad gig.
That's a lifestyle, right? Somebody else has got to be doing all the heavy lifting. That's too much fun. No, I think it's important. You hit it though right on the head, and I do the same thing. For my business, and for me, like, I enjoy doing these shows. I've been doing this my 13th season, doing this broadcast here, and this is a new format for me. I've done pretty much audio in the past, but this was something I enjoyed doing for a number of years, and I'll keep doing it. And I've obviously taught for 30 plus years. And then, I took on the magazine a few years ago. And so I like to, do that sort of thing. But you have to enjoy what you're doing. And if you don't enjoy it, then it is a job. And, so I want to just go back really quickly to the Lux 2, because there's actually two shoes, correct? There's the player, and then what's the other one again?
The Maven.
Maven, that's right. So there's actually two. So what's the difference between the two? I mean, I know you don't have them right here in front of you, but what's essentially the difference? Why two different shoes?
Yeah. Well, when we're kind of creating products, like we mentioned, they have to have a purpose. And for us, our tour staff, even though they play in spikeless shoes day in, day out, and they love them, we always get the question, what would a true spike shoe feel like, right? And so the innovation was really geared at that top performer and top tier athlete that wants to try and see if they can get a performance benefit or advantage from a different technology. And so, for us, we wanted to also create two different fits and feels on a similar platform. And so the Maven, you can think of it as like really our flagship model. Right. And so we spared no expense on this thing. Literally every component of this, after a dozen years in footwear manufacturing myself, I can attest our best in class, materials and practices, from the full grain Napa leather to, a full leather welting system to a PU co-molded midsole. I mean, when you're talking about these shoe nerd things, all I'm hearing is dollar signs, because it's about as nice and expensive as you can make a shoe. Yeah. And the biggest key differentiator in that shoe is a carbon fiber plate system in the midsole. And so after years of toying around with this idea and testing it, we were finding actually noticeable gains in ground force reaction with our activated carbon fiber plate midsole. And to our knowledge, no one's ever done a full footbed activated carbon fiber insert. And the gains are pretty drastic, actually. Yeah. And what people are seeing from ground force reaction. And the other thing that, really made us believers in that technology and science is decades of research in the ultra marathon running space, where they introduced carbon fiber footbeds to some of the high-end performance running shoes and studied it over a decade. And the amount of fatigue that it can relieve from your feet through the walking or running stride is pretty drastic. And, you're hiking 7 miles up and down a hill with a golf bag on your back. Any advantage you can get, you'll take it, right? And so eliminating foot fatigue is a huge benefit of that carbon fiber plate too. So it's a more substantial feeling shoe, the Maven. But we also wanted to give you something that felt a little bit more like a true signature fit and feel. Right. And that's what you find in our player. So foregoing the carbon fiber plate, we've actually replaced it with what we call our true comfort system, just adding a little bit more plush feeling under your foot and a little bit more flexibility underfoot. And then we used a True Dura synthetic leather upper that's crazy durable as well, but it gives it a more minimalist, sportier look. And we're able to offer that, basically for $100 less. And, where the tour player, top caliber amateurs, they want to try the Maven and go all out, you can go for it. And then the guy that wants to be able to, have a very, very similar experience, but for a fraction of the price, you can go with the player.
So really, if I hear you correctly, really what you're saying is the Maven is more of a high performance shoe, and not to say that the player doesn't offer a certain element of performance, but if somebody really wants to take their game and really have the benefits of a higher performance shoe, they're going to get the Maven, like the tour players and the high, or low handicap amateurs. And then for those others that still want a good performing shoe, they have an option for a little bit lesser price to get a lot of the benefits and perks of the other, but at a little bit more reduced, and maybe a few tweaks here and there different. So I think that's, again, that's great. And as I mentioned earlier, I know that you have other, products that you guys have expanded out to, but it's really more complementary to the line. It's not so much that you're delving into a whole different market. You're just adding more or less accessories or other aspects. So just tell us a few of the other things that you guys carry at True Linkswear.
Yeah, no, I think that one of the products that we just released, and unfortunately it's sold out, I shouldn't be advertising this right now, but is our newest iteration of our originals. We talked about those earlier on the call, But, for us, this is staying true to ourselves and continuing to go back to our bread and butter of what we're best at and what nobody else has really figured out how to replicate yet. And people have tried, but, there's something really distinctive about our original class. And so we just introduced our OG3 Pro, which is basically our most golf performance driven, original to date. A little bit more aggressive tread pattern on the bottom, a little bit extra cushioning for that long day on your feet, and a crazy durable upper. It's actually made from the same factory that produces like BMW car seats, and so they last quite a while and feel pretty great first wear.
Fantastic. So let me ask you, I want to go back to the people here for a second, because I heard something that somebody had told me about your group, and it's all positive, by the way, so I'm not catching you off guard with anything. I know obviously you and Ryan are brothers, but some of the other team members as well, they're either related or very close friends. So it's a very family business. And again, you don't have to get into all the names or anything like that, but is there more family involved in the business, like direct family, siblings type of thing? Is it that type of business, or is it just, hey, a group of us boys from the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, that decided we're going to get together and we're going to kick some butt in the golf business? So tell us a little bit about the folks behind the scenes.
It's everybody that I grew up playing junior golf against, basically.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
No, we actually have some sticks around the office. I'm a plus handicap myself, and I'm nowhere near the best golfer in this office. But we all love the game, and we do have a lot of people with familial ties in some capacity,
right.
not necessarily blood ties, but
right.
What feels like blood ties after a lifetime of knowing each other and playing the game of golf together. I do work with my cousin Brandon, who runs our marketing. He's just a brilliant savant when it comes to e-commerce. Two of my childhood best friends actually work, side by side. One runs our product development and just does a crazy great job as our director of all of our product design. And for us, it's critical that he has a lifetime of experience in golf as well, and a top tier athlete himself. And then, my right-hand guy that helps me operate this company, JD, we go way back, same high school golf team.
Oh, wow.
And, we've actually been a part of several other investments and startups throughout the years together. And he's somebody that I could always count on. He was actually running, PXG's Northwest division when I took over True and was running it. And I was like, dude, I want to get you over here eventually. And I was able to finally recruit him over. But everybody, around here, we hire strangers. We post jobs on LinkedIn.
Right.
We're hiring around the country with people we don't know. But, what's most important is that we're building a great team that has a great rapport together. And so culture is so critical in growing a company. As you know, there's enough headaches. You don't want to have personnel headaches as well.
Well, and there's so many, potentially pros and cons to that, because, obviously you're very, very fortunate. You've got a good group of people, because it can have the opposite effect too. You can get some guys that you went to school with and they're thinking, okay, I'm with Jason here, so it's not a big deal. We're old buds, and, they're a little lazy or something. So, you just push them off the mountain or whatever. But no, it can be very challenging to do that. So I give you guys a lot of credit to be able to do that. So obviously you guys are tight enough and close enough and trust one another enough to say, okay, yeah, we want to have fun. We want to make this a great environment to work with, but hey, we got to do some work too. So, it can't be all having a good time and partying all the time and cooking out and all these things. We got to work like the rest of the world too, but we're going to do it a little bit differently because we're going to have some fun along the way. So, and that's not an easy thing to balance. So kudos to you and to all of JD and all of the others, Brandon and that. I'd heard that there was some family in there. I mean, I knew about Ryan obviously, but I knew there was some family and a few close friends, but it sounds like you've got quite a few and it's good. Now, does everybody check like when you're getting somebody new coming in and they're not from the old mold, let's say, does everybody kind of get not necessarily a voice in it, but kind of say, okay, let's really make sure we do a deep dive on, I don't remember them from school, or I don't remember them. you guys put them through the ringer? Is that like
No.
you guys
We,
stand them up
today
and
at
you have
our
to walk
monthly,
past all 50 of you or something?
we do make them give speeches at our all-team meeting, as a part of
Right.
their hazing process. But
Right.
no. It's we don't think of ourselves as a
I got
family company per se. We like to think of ourselves as a competitive team. We want the best players, and it just so happens that I happen to know some of the best players out there, and I recruited them over to the team, and we built a really cool, working environment together.
Where do you see? How do you envision things? I mean, again, you've just done a recent launch, and maybe you have some other things, and you don't obviously have to share them at this point. But I could certainly have you back on when that time comes, when appropriate. But where do you see as you move through 2025 and the future? Where do you see yourself in a few years down the road? And I don't necessarily mean by volume or sizes and things like that. Where would you like to see, I guess is a better way to put that. Where do you see yourself progressing this year and then maybe 2-3 years down the road? Where do you see changes happening within your organization that are going to be crucial, that need to happen, that you've forecasted? Can you share some of that with us?
Yeah,
it's not giving
absolutely.
any trade secrets.
Well, we see ourselves as a brand that's here to stay first and foremost. We're not a flash in the pan brand. We're not just a style or fashion trend. We think we're bringing real IP and innovation to a space that needs it. Mm-hmm. And we hope that we are the household golf shoe brand name at the end of the day. And, that takes a consistency and a dedication and a focus at mastering our craft, continuing to innovate, but also perfect what we do year after year. And for us, we've done a great job at serving our e-commerce client to date as a digitally native company. But we also want to meet customers where they want to shop. We still know 80% of golf shoes are bought off physical retail shelves. I grew up in a small family golf business, and I want to be able to see and work with, small family golf shops and country clubs around the country, being able to stock our shoes and service their member guests and provide a great in-person experience. And we're continuing to grow and push that. In fact, that side of our business is growing at 100% year over year the last several years. And we don't see that ending anytime soon because it's still such a fresh market for us. Outside of that, we really want to be a global brand. And we've already made strides to reach new markets. In fact, we have a great established cult market in Australia. In fact, so great that we acquired our distributors, brought them in-house, and Mark and Sam, who run that territory for us, are now part of the team.
Oh, wow.
And they're helping us grow into new international territories. So there's markets like Korea that are just mad about golf. And we love what they do with golf fashion and golf apparel and golf equipment. And so we want to jump into that market and serve it well. And so for us, we know that there's obviously a market right out our back door locally and then nationally, but globally, it's important that we pay attention to the trends of what's happening around the world.
What has been, I can pretty much guess the answer to this, but I want to hear it from you. What has been some of the feedback, and not from the tour level? Because tour level, that's important because these guys wear this stuff all the time, and they're able to really give you, the truth of what they like and don't like and that sort of thing. But your general customers, what's been some of the feedback, and have they said to you, we would really like to see this or that? And do you see yourselves, okay, we want to move, again, going back to what I said earlier, you got to be careful because you don't want to go down too many pathways. So you have to sort of stay true to yourself. But what's been some of the feedback that you guys have gotten so far from your customer base, and even from those that are that you're expanding to other markets? You mentioned the Asian market. What's been some of the exposure there so far, and what's been some of the feedback?
Yeah, especially as you cater to international markets, you have to pay real close attention to what's happening in that space and get to know the culture well and serve it well. And so there's no boilerplate, true idea that you just copy and paste around the world.
No.
And so we definitely have to be sensitive to and listen and bring wisdom in each territory to succeed in it. But for us, definitely, customer feedback's a huge part of the process. I'd be lying if I said I didn't read every review. I care. I actually care. I'll write responses to them. And I think it's important that you stay abreast to your customer's opinion, feedback, and it definitely motivates and guides some of our decision making on how to improve products specifically if there's a problem or an issue, how to make the next generation even better, how to create colorways that the audience thinks are missing. But I always think you got to walk through doors when they're open. And an example of that is we released great custom headwear, in 2020, and our Dead Golfer icon became pretty popular, and we're selling thousands and thousands of those Dead Golfer hats. And the shop at Bandon Dunes was like, "Hey, those hats are really cool. Could you make one with like a Bandon logo?" And I was like, "Sure," and
Yeah.
we didn't know what we were doing, and we made them samples, and before you knew it, we were one of the best-selling hat companies at Bandon Dunes. And so even though it wasn't like an internal motivation to become this massive headwear company, now we have a very sizable headwear business amongst hundreds of accounts across the country, including our own website.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it is, you have the flexibility when you have your own business to be able, and I've again learned with my own now that the online markets and the internet, has just opened up a plethora of possibilities now. Not just, years ago, if you wanted to get into an international market, it was a much different process. Now with the benefits of Zoom calls and things like that, you can communicate all over the world, and even shipping and getting product over there is even easier now than what it was, 20, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago. So the ability to get into so many markets. One final thing I want to ask you, and then I'll let you close out with any final comments or thoughts you want to make, is how, you're obviously, I know you're available for the men's market and obviously the ladies market. What's been some of the feedback from the women on tour and some of your female customers? Because they're the toughest critics. Let me tell you, guys, we can float whatever you want, and we're happy to do that. We're pretty easy going. But when it comes to the ladies, you got to be really on your ball for that. What's been some of the feedback there?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. But our LPGA Tour staff is, actually been incredibly easy to work with, to be honest. And maybe we just got some of the right characters with Madeline Sagstrom and Sophia, who's been amazing, or Christina Kim. But, really getting their feedback on fit, feel, and function to make sure that we're doing it right, has been critical. But, from a difficulty to work with standpoint, I would say they're probably much less demanding than my PGA Tour audience.
Oh, wow.
Our PGA Tour players can be a little bit more finicky. But, we've definitely gained momentum and popularity amongst, our women's shopping demographics. And it's something we want to push more innovation into. In fact, a few of our new designers are women with really great perspectives, and we think we can bring some meaningful design perspective to the women's footwear space as well.
What do you want as we get ready to wrap up? What are your final thoughts or comments that you want people that are going to be listening to the show? What do you want them to know about True Linkswear? What is it you really want? What's the message you want to get out there?
Yeah, if you're a golfer that loves this game as much as we do, we hope that we can join you in your journey to try to enjoy the walk. And for us, I think that it's important to know that if you're working with us, or if you're buying a pair of shoes from our website, you're working with a great group of humans that has all the best intentions, and we'll take care of you. And I don't think that you find that behind a lot of these big faceless corporations and mega brands. We really have a vision and a passion to keep growing and perfecting and improving our craft. But what we're putting out there today, we're really proud of, and we're excited for you to experience it. If you've never worn a pair of our shoes, it's hard to describe how different they are. And different, in a good way. You'll feel like you just freed your feet, something lightweight that moves naturally with your body, that actually conforms to the undulation of the course. It's a whole different experience. And once you kind of give one pair a try, I'll just warn everybody, you might get hooked. And you might be like the rest of our customers who own 5, 10, or 20 pairs. But for us, we're just a small company trying to do the right thing and grow this game.
Yeah, and you guys did. I mean, I've visited your booths. I know you've been attending the PGA show for a few years now, and I mean, you guys just—it's like throwing breadcrumbs out. The seagulls just come by, and I mean that in a positive way. Is that everybody flocks to your booth because you guys have just got so many great things there, and it really is a lifestyle brand. It's really not just that it works for the purpose that you've put the brand out there, but it really allows people to be comfortable, enjoy what they're wearing, be multifunctional, so that they're not just having to be out in the golf course with it, as you said, sort of just golf attire all the time. They can use it for other aspects of their life, and it works and fits just well. I've done it myself, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. That it's just a great brand, a great product, and it sounds like you've got a fantastic team there. So I want to get you just to hang on for 1 second as I get ready to wrap up and we close up. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight to this broadcast, and a special thanks to my earlier guests, John Hughes and Pete Buchanan, for joining me on the Coach's Corner panel. Thanks, guys, for always bringing your best. And my good friend, Bob Forman, golf fitness professional, for joining me and giving you guys some drills and tips to get golf ready this season. And also my featured guest of the night, Jason Moore, CEO and co-founder of True Linkswear. Thank you. Much continued success. Go to their website, truelinkswear.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Check out, you'll see the launch of their new Lux 2. Check those out, 2 versions, the Maven and the Player, and all of the other great stuff that's available. Well, go out and I guarantee you won't be disappointed if you make a purchase. So get out there and do that. And I hope you come back and join me, and I appreciate it for coming on, and much continued success. And I look forward to working with you guys as we move forward in this 2025 season.
Well, thanks for having me, Ted, and wish you success as well. Keep us up.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.